In 2003, a company was founded with $2 million from the CIA, not a loan, an investment. The Central Intelligence Agency looked at a group of Stanford guys and said, yes, here's the money, build it. And what they built would eventually be worth more than Boeing, more than Goldman Sachs, more than Netflix, Adobe, and IBM combined. Today, that company touches nearly every corner of American intelligence, military, and law enforcement. Its software tracks terrorists, finds fraudsters, and according to critics, helps separate children from their parents at the border. The company is called Palantir, and most people have never heard of it. But here's what makes this story uncomfortable. As of right now, Palantir trades at a valuation so extreme that The Economist called it possibly the most overvalued firm of all time, at 342 times earnings, at over $350 billion in market cap for a company that only turned its first profit 2 years ago. So what exactly does Palantir do? Why is the government paying them billions? And is this company a revolutionary AI powerhouse or the most expensive stock in market history waiting to collapse? Let's find out. Before we can understand Palantir, we need to understand the problem it was designed to solve. September 11, 2001, 19 hijackers, 4 planes, nearly 3,000 dead. In the aftermath, investigators discovered something horrifying. The CIA had information about 2 of the hijackers. The FBI had information about others. The NSA had intercepted relevant communications, but none of these agencies shared data with each other. The information existed. The pattern was there, but no one could see it because the data lived in separate silos, in different formats, protected by bureaucratic walls built over decades. This wasn't a failure of intelligence gathering. It was a failure of intelligence integration. And in 2003, a PayPal billionaire named Peter Thiel decided to fix it. Thiel co-founded PayPal and made hundreds of millions when eBay bought it. He was also an early investor in Facebook, but his next project would be different, darker, and far more consequential. He recruited Alex Karp, a Stanford law graduate with a PhD in philosophy from Germany, a man who practices Tai Chi, speaks with intense philosophical abstractions, and looks nothing like a typical Silicon Valley CEO. Together with 3 other co-founders, they created Palantir Technologies. The name comes from Tolkien. In Lord of the Rings, a Palantir is a seeing stone, a magical orb that lets you see across great distances, see things hidden from ordinary sight. It was a fitting name for what they were building. So what does Palantir actually do? Imagine you're the CIA. You have databases everywhere. Phone records in one system, financial transactions in another, travel data somewhere else, social media scrapes in a 4th place. Human intelligence reports typed into different formats by different agents across different decades. The terrorist you're looking for might appear in all of these systems, but his name is spelled differently in each one. His phone number changed. His passport is under an alias. A human analyst would take months to connect these dots, maybe years, maybe never. Palantir software connects them in seconds. Their first product, called Gotham, does something deceptively simple. It integrates data from completely different sources, regardless of format, and lets analysts visualize connections they couldn't see before. It doesn't just search databases. It maps relationships, finds patterns, shows you that the guy who rented the apartment is connected to the guy who bought the plane ticket, who is connected to the guy who wired money to a known extremist network. And it presents all of this in an interface clean enough that someone without a computer science degree can actually use it. This is important. The CIA didn't need another database. They had plenty of those. They needed a way to make sense of what they already had. Palantir gave them that. For 2 years after their founding, Palantir engineers sat with intelligence analysts at CIA headquarters. They watched how these people worked, what frustrated them, where they got stuck. Then they rebuilt the software based on those observations. This wasn't a product looking for a customer. This was a product sculpted by the customer, funded by the customer, and then sold back to the customer. By 2008, Gotham was deployed across the intelligence community. By 2013, the CIA, NSA, and FBI were all using it, and Palantir had become essential infrastructure for American national security. But Palantir didn't stop at spies. They realized the same problem existed everywhere. Banks have data in silos. Insurance companies have data in silos. Hospitals have data in silos. Every large organization struggles to understand information scattered across different systems. So Palantir built a second product called Foundry, same concept, different customer. Foundry does for corporations what Gotham does for intelligence agencies. It takes messy, fragmented data and turns it into something actionable. A car manufacturer can use Foundry to track every part in their supply chain. A pharmaceutical company can use it to accelerate drug trials. An airline can use it to predict maintenance issues before planes break down. The pitch is simple. You already have the data. You just can't see it clearly. Let us show you what you're missing. This sounds boring. Enterprise software always sounds boring. But here's where it gets interesting. Palantir doesn't just sell software and walk away. They embed engineers directly into client organizations. These forward-deployed engineers work side by side with customers, sometimes for years. They learn the business, customize the platform, make themselves indispensable. Critics call this a consulting company, disguised as a software company. Palantir calls it customer success. Either way, it creates incredible stickiness. Once Palantir is inside an organization, ripping them out is expensive and disruptive. The software becomes part of how decisions get made. And that brings us to the government contracts. In August 2025, Palantir signed a contract with the United States Army worth up to $10 billion. $10 billion over 10 years. For software, this wasn't their first big win. They have contracts with the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, the Special Operations Command, the Department of Homeland Security. They help manage nuclear stockpiles, track foreign adversaries, plan logistics for military operations. In 2024, the company reported government revenue of over $1.5 billion, and that number is growing fast. But government work comes with a shadow. The same capabilities that track terrorists can track immigrants. This is where the story gets uncomfortable. In 2014, Palantir signed a contract with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. The software they built was called Investigative Case Management. ICE officials described it as mission critical. By 2025, Palantir had developed something called Immigration OS, designed specifically to track undocumented immigrants for deportation. They built another system called ELITE that could cross-reference Medicaid records, DMV data, and other government databases to locate people targeted for removal. Amnesty International condemned this work. The ACLU called for Palantir to end its contracts with ICE. Paul Graham, the co-founder of Y Combinator and one of the most influential figures in startup culture, said Palantir was building the infrastructure of the police state. Inside Palantir, employees protested. Some quit. There were internal debates about ethics, about where to draw the line. Alex Karp, the CEO, responded with his philosophy. In his view, the government makes policy. Palantir provides tools. Whether those tools are used to find terrorists or deport families is not Palantir's decision. They build capabilities. Elected officials decide how to use them. This argument has a certain cold logic. A gun manufacturer doesn't choose who gets shot. But critics point out something important. Palantir isn't building generic tools sold to the highest bidder. They embed engineers with clients. They customize solutions. They sit in meetings where policy becomes practice. At some point, tool builder becomes participant. This tension has followed Palantir for 2 decades, and it's not going away. Now let's talk about the stock, because this is where the math gets weird. Palantir went public in September 2020 through a direct listing. The stock bounced around for a few years, and the company kept losing money, year after year of red ink. Then, something changed. In February 2023, Palantir reported its first profitable quarter under standard accounting rules. $31 million in net income. Not a lot, but profit is profit. And then came AI. In April 2023, Palantir launched a product called APE, the Artificial Intelligence Platform. APE integrates large language models directly into their existing software. Now, instead of just visualizing data, Palantir's platform can answer questions, generate insight, make predictions, all while keeping data secure within the customer's own infrastructure. This was exactly what enterprise customers wanted. Big companies are terrified of putting sensitive data into public AI systems like ChatGPT. They need AI that works inside their own walls. Palantir offered that. Bookings exploded. In 2024, revenue hit $2.87 billion, up 29% from the year before. In 2025, that growth accelerated further. Revenue reached over $4 billion, growing more than 50% year over year. The company joined the S&P 500 in September 2024, and the stock went vertical. Shares rose over 300% in 2024, then another 150% in 2025. If you bought Palantir stock 3 years ago, you're up nearly 3,000%. This is not normal. Here's the uncomfortable math. Palantir currently trades at a market cap above $350 billion. Their trailing price to earnings ratio is 342. For context, most software companies trade between 20 and 50 times earnings. Fast growers might reach 80 or 100. Palantir is at 342. Said differently, if the company paid out every dollar of profit as dividends and you owned the entire company, it would take you 342 years to get your money back. The bulls have a response. They say, earnings don't matter right now. What matters is growth. Palantir is growing revenue at 60% a year. Their AI platform is winning massive contracts. They have gross margins above 80%. Once they scale, profits will explode. This is the standard growth stock pitch. Sacrifice today for dominance tomorrow. And maybe they're right, but let's do some rough calculations. For Palantir's current valuation to make sense, the company would need to grow into something enormous. We're talking about revenue of 20, 30, maybe $40 billion within a decade. That's possible, but it requires near perfect execution every year for 10 years. No stumbles, no competition, no political backlash, no recession-crushing government budgets. The market is pricing in a future where Palantir becomes the default operating system for decision-making across governments and corporations worldwide. That future might arrive, but the margin for error is zero. Let me show you the other side. Wall Street analysts, the professionals who cover this stock for a living, have a consensus rating of hold. Their median price target is $200. The stock currently trades around 147. But here's what's interesting. Retail investors, regular people buying shares through their brokerage apps, absolutely love Palantir. It's one of the most popular stocks among individual traders. The Reddit threads are full of believers. The YouTube comments overflow with diamond hands. This creates a fascinating dynamic. Institutional investors think the stock is expensive. Retail investors think it's the future. And so far, retail has been winning. Every time the stock dips, buyers flood in. Every analyst downgrade gets dismissed. The community around Palantir is passionate, informed, and convinced they see something the professionals don't. Maybe they do. Or maybe this is what happens when a compelling narrative meets unlimited liquidity. Let's zoom out. What is Palantir really? At its core, it's an operating system for decisions. They take scattered, messy, incompatible data and turn it into clarity. For intelligence agencies, that clarity reveals threats. For corporations, it reveals inefficiencies. For military planners, it reveals opportunities. This is valuable, obviously valuable, but there's a tension built into the business model. The same software that helps find terrorists can surveil citizens. The same algorithms that optimize supply chains can track human beings. The same platform that wins wars can enable things we'd rather not think about. Palantir has threaded this needle by maintaining a certain deliberate ambiguity. They work with democracies, not autocracies. They talk constantly about ethics, privacy, civil liberties. They employ teams dedicated specifically to protecting rights. But they also take the contracts. All of them. ICE, military, law enforcement. They take the money and build the tools and let someone else decide how those tools get used. This is either principled pragmatism or willful blindness, depending on who you ask. The investment question is simpler and harder at the same time. Simple because the bull case is obvious. AI is transforming everything. Palantir is positioned perfectly. Government and enterprise spending on data analytics will only grow. The company is profitable, growing fast, and winning contracts competitors can't touch. Hard because the valuation is extreme. Even the bulls admit the stock prices in years of perfect performance. Any disappointment, any slowdown, any scandal, and the multiple compresses. Hard. At 342 times earnings, you're not buying a company. You're buying a religion. Here's what I keep thinking about. In Lord of the Rings, the Palantir stones were dangerous. Yes, they let you see far away, but they also showed you what their true master wanted you to see. Anyone who gazed too long risked corruption. Even the wise were tempted. I don't think the founders chose this name by accident. They understood that seeing everything is power, and power is never neutral. 20 years ago, a group of Stanford guys took $2 million from the CIA and built a machine to see patterns invisible to the human eye. Today, that company is worth more than most nations' GDP. Tomorrow, it might be the infrastructure of every government and corporation on Earth. The question isn't whether Palantir's technology works. It does. The question is what we become when we see everything, and whether we can afford to look away.